Left for Dead: My Journey Home from Everest by Beck Weathers. Welcome to First Chapter Fridays. On the evening of May 10th, 1996, a killer blizzard exploded around the upper reaches of Mount Everest, trapping me and dozens of other climbers high in the death zone of the Earth's tallest mountain. The storm began as low, distant growl, then rapidly formed into a howling white fog laced with ice pellets. It hurtled up Mount Everest to engulf us in minutes. We couldn't see as far as our feet. A person standing next to you just vanished in the roaring whiteout. Wind speeds that night would exceed 70 knots. The ambient temperature fell to 60 below zero. The blizzard pounced on my group of climbers just as we gingerly descended a sheer pitch known as the Triangle above Camp 4, or High Camp, on Everest's South Col, a desolate saddle of rock and ice about 3,000 feet below the mountain's 29,035-foot summit. 18 hours earlier, we had set out from the South Col for the summit, heartened as we trudged along by a serene and cloudless night sky that beckoned us ever upward until dawn, when it gave way to a spectacular sunrise over the roof of the world. Then confusion and calamity struck. Of the 8 clients and 3 guides in my group, 5 of us, including myself, never made it to the top. One of the 6 who summited, 4 were later killed in the storm. They included our 35-year-old expedition leader, Rob Hall, a gentle man. Before he froze to death in a snow hole near the top of Everest, Rob would radio a heartbreaking farewell to his pregnant wife, Jan Arnold, at their home in Christchurch. Another sad fatality was a 47-year-old whose final human contact was with me. The 2 of us huddled together throughout that awful night, lost and freezing in the blizzard on the South Col, just a quarter mile from the warmth and safety of our camp. 4 other climbers also perished in the storm, making May 10, 1996, the deadliest day on Everest in the 75 years since the intrepid British schoolmaster George Leigh Mallory first attempted to climb the mountain. May 10th began auspiciously for me. I was battered and blowing from the enormous effort to get that far, but I was also as strong and clear-headed as any 49-year-old amateur mountaineer can expect to be under the severe physical and mental stresses at high altitude. I already had climbed 8 other major mountains around the world, and I had worked like an animal to get to this point, hell-bent on testing myself against the ultimate challenge. I was aware that fewer than half of the expeditions to climb Everest ever put a single member, client or guide, on the summit. But I wanted to join an even more select circle, the 50 or so people who had completed the so-called 7 Summits quest, scaling the highest peaks on all 7 continents. If I summited Everest, I would have only one more mountain to go. I also knew that approximately 150 people had lost their lives on the mountain, most of them in avalanches. Everest had swallowed up several dozen of these victims, entombing them in its snowfields and glaciers. As if to underscore its vast indifference to the whole mountain climbing experience, Everest mocked its dead. The glaciers slowly grinding rivers of ice, carrying climbers' shattered corpses downward like so much debris, to be deposited in pieces decades later far below. Common as sudden, dramatic death is among mountain climbers. No one actually expects to be killed at high altitude. I certainly didn't, nor did I ever give much thought to whether a middle-aged husband and father of 2 ought to be risking his neck in that way. I positively loved mountain climbing, the adventure, the danger, and to a fault, the ego boost it gave me. I fell into climbing, so to speak, a willy-nilly response to a crushing bout of depression that began in my mid-30s. The disorder reduced my chronic low self-regard to a bottomless pit of despair and misery. I recoiled from myself and my life and came very close to suicide. Then salvation. On a family vacation in Colorado, I discovered the rigors and rewards of mountain climbing and gradually came to see the sport as my avenue of escape. I found that a punishing workout regimen held back the darkness for hours each day. I also gained hard muscle and vastly improved my endurance, 2 novel sources of my pride. Once in the mountains, I could fix my mind, undistracted, on climbing, convincing myself in the process that conquering world-famous mountains was a testimony to my grit and manly character. I drank in those moments of pleasure, satisfaction. But the cure eventually began to kill me. The black dog slunk away at last. Yet I persisted in training and climbing. High altitude mountaineering and the recognition it brought me became my hollow obsession. When my wife Peach warned that this cold passion of mine was destroying the center of my life and that I was systematically betraying the love and loyalty of my family, I listened but did not hear her. The pathology deepened. Increasingly self-absorbed, I convinced myself that I was adequately expressing my love for my wife, daughter, and son by liberally seeing to their material needs, even though I was emotionally abandoning them. On May 10th, 1996, the mountain began gathering me to herself, and I slowly succumbed. The drift into unconsciousness was not unpleasant as I sank into a profound coma on the South Col, where my fellow climbers eventually would leave me for dead. Peach, my wife, received the news by telephone at 7:30 a.m. at our home in Dallas. Then a miracle occurred at 26,000 feet. I opened my eyes. My wife was hardly finished with the harrowing task of telling our children their father was not coming home when a second call came through, informing her that I wasn't quite as dead as I had seemed. Somehow I regained consciousness out on the South Col. I don't understand how, and was jolted to my senses, as well to my feet by a vision powerful enough to rewire my mind. I am neither churchly nor a particularly spiritual person, but I can tell you that some force within me rejected death at the last moment and then guided me, blind and stumbling, quite literally a dead man walking, into camp and the shaky start of my return to life.